He hates gender.
Binary is a statement of my freedom to be and do what I want.
Who the hell doesn't like gender?
Would it be better if gender just didn't exist?
Also, gender should just not be a thing anymore.
If it was treated less like a binary and more like a spectrum. Gender is not the colors of the rainbow. It cannot be a spectrum.
Neither and nothing. No gender. A gender.
I think I hate gender. I don't want to be a man anymore.
This is gonna be a long one.
So it's January 2021, and for some reason I'm looking at pictures of some award show. I can't actually remember which. The Grammys, the Oscars, they're all the same. I'm looking at these pictures and one thing is quickly becoming clear to me. These guys are boring as fuck. You got all these women out here with all these gowns and dresses of all different colours and textures, literal fucking art pieces. And then you got these niggas who are just like, suit with shirt undone. Suit. Oh, okay. Usher's not looking too bad. Kinda clean, kinda nice. I like it. Suit with big chain. Suit. And I'm just sitting there wondering, when did everyone agree this was fine? Is this it? Is this all we're allowed? And the thing is, you do get some guys out here being different, being creative and wild and unique, but that just makes the rest of it even weirder. Like, we know being a man doesn't inherently make you a boring dresser, so why are we pretending it does? Are we supposed to believe that most male celebrities just like this kind of style? Do most men in general feel like this? When did we agree to that? I wish they told me before I showed up to prom in a dress. And while we're on the topic of dresses and suits, how come when a woman wears a suit it's at most mildly interesting, but when a guy wears a dress the whole world collapses? So dresses and skirts are gendered and suits aren't, except when they are. But dresses and skirts also aren't, because what do you call these? Are these not variations of skirts and dresses? Oh no, I'm sorry, this one's a robe. So why is a robe not gendered but a dress is? But this robe is only really worn by men, so that's gendered, and that's when it hit me. Well, two things actually. One, I think I hate gender. And two, I don't want to be a man anymore.
I'd like to say, although I will disagree with some of the points you're going to pose in this video, and I would also like to make a few corrections, overall your content is okay, and I guess if we just start on a more positive note, then the things I would say will land if it ever reaches your timeline. So let's just continue the video.
So this is going to be a different kind of video than usual, which means nothing if this is the first video of mine you've seen, in which case, hi, hope you stick around. When it comes to talking about myself on this channel, I only really do that if I'm detailing my emotional response to a piece of media I'm analysing. Just as an example, one of my earlier videos was about the anime SSSS Gridman. That got quite personal, but only because the series really touched me emotionally, which I used to reinforce my observations and analysis of its themes. Ultimately, the video is more about Gridman than me. Other such videos include my ones on Midsommar, Evangelion, the Bag of Milk games, the one I just put out about Signalis. This one is different in that I and my experiences are ultimately the heart of the video. Again, not something I usually do, but fuck it, figured I'd do an indulgent ramble for Pride Month. So, I am non-binary. If you aren't familiar with it, it's basically an umbrella term within the trans umbrella term that refers to people who, as the name suggests, do not fit within a strict male or female gender identity.
Okay, this is where we get our first disagreement. No. Non-binary is not under the trans umbrella term, and here is the reason why. The meaning of transgender is when a male has this psychological problem in their head where they think and they feel and they have this dysphoria that they're female, and After subsequent and very intense therapy, which is to be expected in our society, they now decide to go for hormone therapies and then add breasts on themselves, cut off their penis, and then make a pseudo vagina so that it can appear more female because of how their mind works. It's not just something that you can decide to make new pronouns for yourself. That's what non-binary is supposed to be. For trans people that are actually having gender dysphoria, they are like, I don't want to use he, him. I want to use she, her. I want to look like a woman physically. And for a woman, she's like, I don't want to use she, her. I want to use he, him. And she'll change her gender physically to look like that of a man. But for non-binary is saying that they want to be outside the constraints of gender. But that's not trans. Trans are using the so-called constraints of gender because they're changing from male to female, female to male. And if you're using the idea that there are multiple genders and there are infinite amount of genders, you have to accept the idea that trans means that it can change from male to another gender outside female, or female to another gender outside male. But no one ever talks about that because it's not real. You can't change from trans to non-binary, for instance. You cannot change from trans to any other, like agender or multigender or trigender, any of these other stuff that are under the non-binary term because they want to feel special about it. And this is just my own personal opinion. I don't think non-binary should be under the trans umbrella. I think it should be under its own umbrella because they don't have much in common, if anything, only that they are messing with the pronouns. But for trans, they have a legitimate disorder in their mind. But for non-binary, they just want to be frisky. They want to use different pronouns because they don't like the he, him, or she, her because they think it's confining to them. I don't understand. But they're not the same at all. They don't exist under the same umbrella. At least from what I have heard, due to their definitions, they don't at all.
This might take the form of identifying as a different gender altogether, identifying with partially but not wholly one gender, identifying as both male and female, either simultaneously or shifting between the two back and forth, or identifying as neither and nothing. No gender. A gender. That is me. When it comes to how this identity, or lack of, manifests and affects how I live, aside from the obvious they-them pronouns, it's really just a reflection of the fact that I kind of don't understand gender.
Non-binary debate that I hear so very often. Those that say they're non-binary, they're usually like, well, I don't understand what gender is. Is this skirt? If you're a girl, you're wearing a skirt. But if a guy's wearing a trouser and the girl decides to wear a trouser, it's giving me gender dysphoria. And I'm like, no, because that's not what gender is. Gender is not a girl. It's not pink and blue. Gender is not a girl wearing pink or a boy wearing blue. It's simply deeper than that. Gender, as I feel, as I have come to realize, is the physical manifestation of one's biological sex. And now I'm going to explain that in a little bit of depth because I don't want to go too deep into this stuff. So we have sex. When you're born, when your mother and your father come together, the sperm of your father determines your sex because they have either the double X or XY with you. If double X merges with your mom's mature egg, you become a female. And if your XY merges with your mother's fertilized egg, you become a male. Now, the reason why that is because our human body and most of the animal kingdom that uses this mode of reproduction needs a male and a female sex so that they can procreate and make more children and continue on. That's how evolution works. That's how animals work. That's how living things work in general. So when you have the XX chromosomes, they usually assign you to sets of traits that are typical to this group of people, female. When you have XX, the chromosome will tell your DNA list. See, when she becomes when she reaches her puberty, she's gonna have breasts, she's gonna have high-pitched voice, she's gonna like boys, she's gonna be heterosexual, she's gonna, you know, grow hair in her pubes and her all those stuff. And then if you have XY, that chromosome will tell your DNA list, see, he's gonna have a penis, he's gonna, you know, like to put it in holes, and he's gonna have this sort of brain, he's gonna have this bone structure, he's gonna have testosterone, and so on and so forth. I believe sex is those chromosomes. After the sperm merges with the egg, whatever is the determining factor for what is going to be under their vagina or penis, that is sex. Now, gender is everything else that the sex manifests physically. Like, if the sex is XX, you have estrogen, you have progesterone, your brain will be wired in a different way. You're gonna have a bigger hip size, you're gonna have smaller bones, you're gonna be shorter usually than the average man. If it's XY, you're gonna have testosterone, you're gonna have a penis, you're gonna all the other stuff, you know, you get what I'm saying. Now people will now say, what about intersex people? Well, I did my research, unlike some of y'all, and if you're intersex, usually you're female because your chromosomes correspond to most of the physical characteristics they can see. Other than a micro penis, you're everything else, you're female. And for the offset chance that this very small group of people that have this, you know, genetic minority mutualization, genetic mutation, on the offset that they are male, everything in their body, their brain, their chromosomes, they line up with most of their physical attributes, except maybe a micro or an enlarged clitoris. You get what I'm saying? So intersex people are not, they don't have wombs and then a penis. It's not possible for you to have both of those organs. It's not possible for you to have the same amount of testosterone flowing through your body and the same amount of estrogen. It's just not possible. So that's why I say gender. This is what gender is. I hope I've been able to clear that out.
It's almost a case of the more I think about it, the less sense it makes. Though I don't identify as a masculine person, I'm not really bothered by my body being male, and I have no desire to change it to better fit my state of mind, because in my mind, the fact that my body is male is something completely irrelevant to me as an individual. In other words, my being male is not an important part of my identity, it's just the shape my body is in, which I still do have my issues with, but that's a separate thing from gender. I suppose someone could be forgiven for not immediately clocking that I'm a man, because other than maybe the occasional nail polish, which I just realised I forgot to put on and will appear on my fingers in 3, 2, 1, I really don't do much to present myself in an androgynous kind of way, which I actually think might be a good thing. I feel like people have this image of what a non-binary person looks like in their head, which to me goes against why I identify as that in the first place. For me, being non-binary is a statement of my freedom to be and do what I want. It is me saying I will not let stereotypes and constructs define my personality, my interests and my beliefs.
There, right there. Did you hear what he said at the end? I will not let stereotypes define my interests and my beliefs. And that is the whole premise for non-binary. Clap! Now, no disrespect, no hate, no nothing, no bigotry is present here, just free thought. This is what I always hear from the non-binary people. Or all the other people that want to be risque. They don't want to be male. They don't want to be female. They don't want to look like the average man or woman. And it's fine if you want to wear whatever you want to wear. It's fine if you want to express yourself in different ways. If you're a girl that you want to wear boys' dresses, you want to cut your hair short. If you're a boy that wants to wear gowns and all that stuff, if you want to do that, that's fine. But that does not now mean that you are no longer a man or a woman. These gender stereotypes that you think exist do not exist, especially in Western society. What I mean by stereotypes, I don't mean a woman in a dress or a man in a suit, three-piece suit. What I mean is the glass boxes that have no width, size, like for women and men, they don't exist. Unless if you're talking about all other restrictive countries. But here, I would assume you're in a Western society. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're in a free country, more or less.
I will not let society's expectations of how I should act box me in. I will do and be as I want, whether it is masculine or feminine or whatever. I don't care, and neither should you. I remember Harry Styles spurred all this controversy and attention for wearing a dress on a magazine cover, and one of the things I remember coming out of that the most is this clip of all people, Logan Paul defending Harry from his co-host. I'll leave the clip in the description, but I remember being struck by how I didn't understand the co-host's argument. He just keeps saying, "It's not manly, it's not manly." What does that mean? It's like me saying, "I don't like cheese because it's not a vegetable." Like what does that mean? You can't just leave it at that. I haven't seen the full episode, but in all the footage I've seen, he doesn't really do anything to explain why a man wearing a dress is so offensive other than it's not manly.
Yeah, you're right. I haven't seen the podcast yet, but from what you said here, I don't think he made good points on why Harry Styles wearing a dress is bad. Just saying it's not manly is not a good point. I agree with you, but I don't think this is society's premise. I don't think everybody in society is like, "Oh my god, a man in a dress, ugh." There is always someone for anybody. This is the world we live in, especially if you're in a Western society. Most people are more accepting. If you're a guy that wants to wear a dress, if you're a girl that wants to wear men's clothes, much more people are accepting of that. Just take a look at Dylan Mulvaney. Take a look at, that's the only trans person I know, but there are others that have opted to the feminine lifestyle. Lil Nas X, for example, Sam Smith, they do not wear men's clothes most of the time. They like to go outside of the box. They like to wear more feminine outfits, and most of the world is supportive of them. If anybody wants to be hateful towards them, that's their business. They are not getting as much hate as in ratio to the likes they're having, if you get what I'm saying. So obviously there is a double standard there, as he said in the beginning. If a woman should wear a man's clothes, like the gowns, if she should change that and wear a suit that is usually fit for a man, most people would not see it as so off, although they'll be like, this doesn't look good on you. That's just where it's gonna end. And even if there's gonna be like 1 or 2 articles written about how women are not trying to be masculine, people will still shut it down. Some will call it misogynistic, whatever. But if a man should dare wear a dress, no, brother, ew, where's that meme, brother, ew. And obviously, personally, I do not like men in dresses. If you're wearing a dress and you're a man, it's a turn off for me, but that doesn't mean I will now try to stop you from wearing a dress. If you want to wear a dress, I don't think people should start writing articles on the population is going woke, going broke, whatever. So if you want to wear a dress, whatever. His points that he brought up were enough, sufficient enough as to why he cannot wear a dress. And yeah, on that note, I agree with you.
I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised to eat squid. That doesn't mean I hate people for eating squid. What struck me about this argument is how there really isn't an argument at all. I feel like there's a specific term for this kind of fallacy where just saying something and not elaborating at all is somehow enough, but it's not coming to mind. But it just fascinates me with how it was. Like, he genuinely thought that just saying something isn't manly and refusing to explain why is a good argument. And it makes me wonder, would it be better if gender just didn't exist?
No, it wouldn't be. You know why? Because gender is tied to your sex, and your sex makes the man and the woman, which is the two ends of the human species. And this goes across the board. Plants, animals, every species that goes through the normal process of reproduction needs gender. You need the male and you need the female. You need one to fertilize the other, and that is where gender originates. And if you're telling me that I should just remove gender, we should just remove it, that you're also going to be removing parts of the body that cannot be removed by surgery or hampered by puberty blockers or all that, because they exist due to some things in our bodies that we cannot change or modify, such as sex, XXXY. They exist for a reason, and they manifest themselves very, very strongly in our day-to-day lives. And you cannot tell me that removing or trying to suppress these natural tendencies that we have is going to be beneficial to society. Gender is the way we identify ourselves. We use that as one of the identities, like race and hair color, hair texture, hairstyles, only that gender is much more ingrained in human nature, and it's not a sad thing at all. It is literally how we function. Man and woman, walking and wangi, and you supposed to be together, you understand? I don't care if you didn't understand what I just said now, but we need to coexist together. If you want to eradicate gender, it means that there is nothing much worth fighting for. Like the gender wage gap that they talk about should not even be a problem because gender does not exist. Feminism should not even be a thing because gender does not exist. Men's rights, women's rights, children, brother, sister, father, mother, all these days that are specific to the genders, sexes should not even exist because gender does not exist. And that is where the problem lies. You cannot eradicate gender because it is deeply ingrained in our human society across every single facet, every single culture. Gender roles vary from culture to culture, but the gender remains the same. You cannot have a different gender. Those are just pseudo. They are not real. They are things that people, when they don't understand gender in its full entirety, make up to cope with themselves. And I'm not trying to be mean. I know it sounds like I am, but not really. I'm just trying to say the truth. Oh, that sounds sort of cringe, but yeah, that is actually the whole deal here. Gender is not just skirts and trousers. Gender is not pink and blue. So therefore, you cannot eradicate gender. If you want to say, let us eradicate the gender rules, it is also going to be very hard to do because women naturally want to have children. Women generally are more emotional than men, as in they have more emotional intelligence than men. Men generally are stronger than women. So if you want to eradicate gender, it means that we should not have male bathrooms or female bathrooms. We should not have female only spaces. We should not have male only spaces. We should not divide sports. We should not divide sports by gender. We should not also divide competitions by gender. Like, there are some men, there are some sports that men generally do more than women. We should not divide them. We should just have everything mushed in together. Like, you know how dangerous that is. You know exactly how dangerous that can be. I don't want to go into the details, but just think about Leah Thomas and the Riley Gaines situation. Think about gender fluidity. There was one guy like that he decided that he's gender fluid, therefore he can identify as any other gender. And I don't have a problem with that necessarily until society now starts to allow that to be part of their system. And this guy severely R-worded a girl in the girl's bathroom, like blood. Now I don't get demonetized, but serious blood was dripping from her, and the people there were trying to gaslight the father that it was not his problem or it's not his fault. So imagine if we now decided that we're not going to have any gender bathrooms, not even gender fluidity. Gender fluidity would not exist. Non-binary would not exist because non-binary is supposed to be outside the confines of gender. But if gender does not exist, non-binary would not exist. Therefore, you cannot have a label. No, gender fluidity would not exist. Androgynous, none of those things will exist. So that I don't think gender should be eradicated.
That would be post-genderism, and it's an idea I think sounds nice. After all, I do tweet abolish gender every Pride Month. Having said that, it's also one I think I need to look into more. Like I said, I don't really get gender anymore. If anything, it's just gotten more confusing as I've gotten older. So to me, getting rid of it altogether just seems logical, I guess. At the same time, I understand that for a lot of people, especially trans people, gender is an important part of one's identity, and not in an insecure, projection-y kind of way, but a more comforting and affirming kind of way.
I disagree. I disagree wholeheartedly. But at least I'm happy that he acknowledges that he doesn't. I'm happy that they acknowledge that they don't really understand gender. But I hope if they come across this video, my insights on what gender actually is will enlighten them. So first of all, I'd like to say transgenderism is not about your feeling. It's not about a comfort. Like when they say that they don't feel like a man, they feel like a woman, it's not about comfort. It's literally a legitimate mental illness. No matter how much some people will try to twist it and be like, no, you can just decide to be a woman one day and you're trans. No, that is not transgenderism. At this point, you just want to be a fashionista, and that's okay. If you want to be a femboy, that is okay. If you want to be a tomboy, that is okay. No one is going to stop you. I mean, people will stop you, will try to, but I would defend you if they try to. But that is not what trans is. Trans is a legitimate mental illness where their brain is trying to tell them that they are something that they are not. It's just like body dysphoria, OCD, schizophrenia, psychosis, every other disease you can think of that is mental. That is what it is. And I'm not trying to bring down any trans individual that is watching this video, but if you are actually trans, it is not just about comfort, it is a legitimate mental illness. So I do think that this person is getting some things wrong, especially about gender and transgenderism in general. But let's just go.
And far be it from me or anyone else to take away something that makes people feel comfortable in their own skin. I suppose what I really want at the end of the day is a break from the rigidness of the gender binary, not necessarily the total and complete destruction of the concept itself. If it was treated less like a binary and more like a spectrum.
So according to the definition I use for gender, which I agree is the most suitable for the word, then you cannot make it a spectrum, because sex itself is not a spectrum. The only thing you can say can become a spectrum is gender roles, which is what I think you are mentioning when you say gender here, because you talked about skirts and suits. So gender roles should become a spectrum. I don't think the idea itself is terrible. I just don't think most of the world would align themselves to the spectrum, because most people generally do not want to go outside their gender, not because of social constraints, but because of their biological brains. A woman generally would not want to go to these blue-collar jobs that a man is willing to do. A man generally will not want to stay at home all day with the kids and clean their diapers and all that stuff. They are creative stuff that men are willing to put up with that women will not do, and things that women are willing to put up with that men will not do. And that is the reason why gender roles, gender stereotypes exist. But if you're saying we should be more lenient on these stereotypes and give room for people that fall outside these stereotypes, I agree. But I don't think gender itself should be a spectrum or can be a spectrum, due to the fact that gender is a binary because of our sex. Sex XXXY,
within which people can find their own unique relationship with gender. I think at least a few of my issues would be erased. I feel like we're kind of getting there with sexuality, and I would love to see the same happen with gender, despite His Majesty's government's attempts to do the opposite. And while we're on that topic, can I just say I'm fucking pissed that TERF stole the term gender critical? Like, when I heard it for the first time, I was like, oh great, more people who think that men and women shouldn't exist as terms. But it turned—
What? Gender... I have no idea what this person is talking about here. I'm gonna use folk, because folk, I heard, is a non-binary term. It's unisex. So I don't know what this folk is talking about. What does he mean by TERFs stole the word gender critical? That people that think that men and women should not exist as terms. Huh? Do you know what TERF means? TERF is trans exclusive radical feminist. Keyword feminist, which is a gender term. So if man and women should not exist as terms, what about other gendered words like feminism or misogyny or misandry or misogynoir or every other term that is gendered that you can think of? Girl, boy, sister, brother, wife, husband, lesbian, gay, Should they also be eradicated? And here we run into problems. You cannot erase gender because gender is ingrained in our social system, not just because we all decided that, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to divide us into groups that we don't all fit into, and even if anyone complains, they can't do anything they want. This is because of what the world mostly wants to do. If you go to any other culture, just like my culture, I am Igbo, by the way, we say woke and wanyi, meaning man or woman, because of that is how the whole world works. If you go to French, you have elle, you have le, man, woman. If you go to Spanish, you also have la, you have elle, you have all these other gender words. And it's not just because we all decided to do this thing. It has to be for a better reason, meaning that men and women are actually different, and it is supposed to be a label that you ascribe to them in order to identify who they are. You cannot just say, well, I'm not going to remove this word because it doesn't suit me. But like, how do you now identify them? If you see someone that looks like, you know, they correspond with their sex, if they have the buff shoulders and all that kind of stuff, because these things are actually real differences that our biology makes changes for us. If you're a female, you have a different anatomy from a man, and so on and so forth. So if you see someone that has this face, all the kind of stuff, you cannot call them a man. If you cannot call them he, him, you cannot use these pronouns. What do you now do? You now have to, like, every time you go to somebody, you have to reprogram and bend to them and ask them whatever they have, whatever pronouns they use, whatever nouns they use, and then you now ascribe to them anybody you meet. I don't think that is a very, very, very happy society, and I stand by that. If you have to ask someone their pronouns every time you go out to meet them, I don't think the world would be a better place, in my humble opinion.
Out they're actually more devoted to gender stereotypes than anyone else. I don't even know why they call themselves gender critical. If anything, they're more gender puritanical. Ah well, such are the pitfalls of living on Turf Island. I guess to try and wrap up this vaguely structured rant, I think the way we think about gender is dumb. I think if more people were open to the idea of gender being this fluid spectrum that is open to any number of identities, I genuinely think people would be a lot happier, including and maybe especially most cisgender people.
What the fuck is this guy talking about? Ugh, you're making it hard for me to like you. You're making it hard for me to not give too harsh of a constructive criticism on you. What do you mean by who? I don't even know what he's talking about in the beginning about turf, puritanical gender. I don't know what he's talking about, but what I do have an idea that he's talking about is the making gender now a spectrum where people can identify infinitely. There is a very big problem with that, because if you look into the history of gender, it used to be a synonym for sex. I don't agree that it's a synonym for sex, because although it and sex goes hand in hand, they are not the same thing and they cannot be synonymous. But saying that we should just make it a spectrum is so difficult to even wrap your mind around, because if it's supposed to be a spectrum, does that mean that we'll now divide our bathrooms based on people's infinite identities? No more male and female. No. Those are gendered words. We can't use them. We can't have woman and man. Bathrooms, no, you have your every type of gender you want, or we just have a bathroom that is gender neutral. Any gender can enter inside. You can be a small kid, you can be a large old man, everybody can enter inside. Or sports, separating by your biological gender. For what? Just make a whole, they say, even Paralympics, people that have no leg, people that have no hand, people that identify as whatever gender they want, just enter and do whatever you like. Anybody that beats wins, even though you have different biological limitations that are real and we are seeing them with our own eyes. Nope, those things don't matter. The last part that bothered me the most, because he said it would also make some cis people happy. Now, what are cis people? Cis people generally are people that live by the gender that they have at birth. Like, if you are male, you live as a male for your entire life. If you're female, you live as a female your entire life. This also accounts for femboys or lesbians. You know what is lesbians? The lesbians that like to look like present in a male. They like to be like a tomboy. It doesn't account for them. Those ones do not even live in the so-called confines of gender. So do they live in a spectrum? Are they part of cis people? Are they different? I don't know. I don't understand.
Barring that, I'd also settle for torching the whole concept and never looking back, but I get the sense that that one isn't happening anytime soon. Still, for as long as gender has been a thing, there have been people pushing its boundaries, challenging its limits, rejecting its homogeny, and despite all attempts to stop us, I get the feeling we aren't going anywhere. Happy Pride Month, everyone. Whatever you're calling yourself, whatever your pronouns are, as long as you're comfortable, I'm happy for you.
And that's basically where the video ends. There's an end theme after this, but I don't think it's good. I don't think it's appropriate to include it here, because this ending is just a feel good. Everybody, if you want to identify whatever pronoun you want to use, whatever, you can use it as long as it makes you happy. And I think that that's very, very dangerous, because how will I explain it? What standard will you use to identify people in our society? Because you need these identities. You need them. You need them in science. You need them in arts. You need them to in all these records. No matter how much you want to call yourself a they them, if you die and they want to collect empirical data of how people in 2023 existed and lived their lives, they dig up your bones and they check your DNA. They will determine by that whether you are a male or a female. Societal standards will not change. Sure, they can, call male and female a different name, like they can use a different name to characterize male and female, but it will not change that there will still be two distinct categories that they will ascribe sexes to. It's not going to change. The language around this can change, but it will always be two. No matter how much you want to feel about it, I'm not against you feeling however. If you want to be non-binary, if you want to be androgynous, whatever. I'm just trying to give you guys the facts here. And I think with all the things we have seen here, I think it will be a very, very dumb idea to abolish gender.